It's time for a Painspective.
YouTube, what's going down? Welcome to the brand new series, Painspectives. No, I couldn't think of a better name. This is, excuse the headphones, this is a video series that I am using to express my opinion and share my experiences on various matters related to production, music business, music industry, so on and so forth. And I want to kick off the series with the very controversial subject of sampling. I tweeted something the other day that got a lot of responses and a lot of questions and some disagreements. Shout out to Smile Up. Basically what I said was, if you're a producer and you're concerned about sample clearance, don't be. So what I am not going to talk about in this video is how sampling affects producers in terms of their money, in terms of their publishing, so on and so forth, because that's all. It all depends. You know, will you make less money in the long run if you sample? Well, yeah. Is it good to stay away from sampling? Well, yeah, in some respect, but are you going to tell producers like Just Blaze, yo, you probably shouldn't sample anymore? You know, it's good to be versatile, obviously, but if that's your thing to sample, you're going to sample. It's a part of hip-hop culture, whether or not it benefits producers financially in all cases. I've played some records with sampling. My most famous record on the Jeezy album, The Recession, Don't Do It, that was sample based. Now, did I get paid for it? Yeah. Could I have made more without the sample? Yeah. Am I gonna give the money back? No. Do I regret it? No. Would I do it again? Hell yeah. So anyway, on to the topic. This is for producers and artists, and this is just my opinion. I'm not a lawyer who deals with sample clearances. I'm not someone who's worked at a label in a legal department. I'm just talking about my experiences as a producer. So producers have been asking me this question for years, and I've never gotten around to addressing it all at once. The question is, as a producer, do you have to clear your samples before you sell a beat? In short, no. Now, there are a lot of myths floating around regarding sampling as well. The 8-second rule, or the 6-second rule, or the 5-second rule, or whatever, where if you sample under 8 seconds or under 6 seconds, or whatever the number they throw out, you don't have to clear that sample. Yeah, you do. If something's in public domain, or it's from a royalty-free collection, that's a different story. But if you sample a record that's owned by someone else's intellectual property, then you know they got to get something out of it. Now, that kind of contradicts what I just said about producers not having to worry about it. Well, here's the situation now. When I've sold sample-based beats to major labels, they send over the contract, but then they also send over something called the sample replay form. Sometimes they won't send over a sample replay form. Sometimes they'll just ask you for all of the information about the sample, but either way, it's ultimately the same thing. They want to know who you sampled, what the name of the song was, what the name of the album the song was on, what the name of the label was that released the song, the year of release, so on and so forth. So their legal department can handle everything. They're not expecting a producer who makes 100 beats a day to clear all of those samples. If I make, let's say, 20 beats a week, which is kind of close to what I do make, and let's say 10 of those are sample based, right? Clearing a sample costs anywhere from $1,000 to $30,000. I'm not gonna spend that money on a beat that I haven't sold yet. That's crazy. So no one's expecting you to do that. Let alone the labels. They have legal departments that handle that. I said I wasn't gonna talk about this, but I'm gonna kind of touch on it now. Of course, that may affect your sales royalties, mechanical royalties. Definitely will affect your publishing unless you get super lucky. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sample clearance and the producer. Now, when you're releasing music, let's say you're working with another unsigned or independent artist, and this is for artists too, and you want to release a mixtape or a free EP or even something you're going to put on iTunes, and your project is full of uncleared samples. And this is where we have to start being realistic with ourselves, right? Suing somebody is a pain in the ass, and it costs a lot of money. It's a long process. When you release a project and there are uncleared samples on it, you should ask yourself, hey, what are the chances of somebody I've sampled hearing this project? Number one. Two, you got to ask, how much money am I going to make off this project? And I'm talking about, big money. Some unsigned artists get really lucky and they sell a whole bunch of records. Let's say you only make $1,000 off the whole project, right? Is that $1,000 worth someone investing all this time and money to hire a lawyer to sue you over? Not really. So be realistic about it. You hear about these crazy lawsuits over uncleared samples, but think about the people that are involved. I mean, the most recent one was Three Kings. Dr. Dre, Rick Ross, and Jay-Z were on that record. That's a big record. It's released by a major label. Yeah, they're gonna get in some legal trouble if the sample's uncleared. And I don't know the details, but that's a high-profile situation. You heard about the Rakim sample, or producers like RZA. You know, these are artists putting out these huge releases with a lot of money-generating potential. If you're someone who got sampled by these artists and you weren't compensated for it, you look at it like, this is a Rick Ross record. Rick Ross is selling a lot of records. This is worth my trouble to sue him to get some money out of it. And you hear about independent artists getting sued for uncleared samples too, but I think the most high-profile case I can think of is Atmosphere. They've gotten sued multiple times for cleared samples, and it didn't stop their hustle, first of all. Second of all, that's Atmosphere. You know, they're an independent label, but they are touring internationally. They're charting on Billboard. They're selling a lot of records. So when it gets to the point where you're selling that many records, you have to take a gamble. Is it worth clearing the sample? I could get sued for this amount of money, but you know, I'm going to take that risk, or I'm not going to take that risk. That's a conversation worth having when you're at that level. So when I say be realistic with yourself, I mean, consider your position. Is it worth spending all this money to clear a sample, you know, thousands of dollars, when your project may only make a little money? You know, it might not be worth it. But it's a gamble. This isn't legal advice, this is my opinion. So to recap, if you're a producer, are you expected by major or independent labels to have cleared your samples in the beats that you produce and are selling them? No. And if they expect that, that's an unreasonable expectation, because producers like us make a lot of beats and we do not have the financial resources or the legal resources, which also cost a lot of money, to clear each individual sample for every beat we make before we sell it. So the expectation for us to do that isn't there. And that is my Painspective. Peace.
Fuck bitches in the dark, they somewhere shaking ass. It's hard now, but I know one day all this shit'll pass. I feel they only looking down, cause now I'm on my ass. They used to